Remember that uncle or friend or auntie who is full of quick one-line solutions to the problems of India?
The government should just go back to strict population control and stop poor people from having so many babies.
Or,
Too much democracy has made us all indisciplined. What we are needing is some dictatorship.
well, in the same category of sweeping stuff that people say is this.
If Article 370 is abolished, the economy and security situation in Kashmir will definitely improve and India will benefit.
Yesterday, I showed how the Modi government's decision to abrogate the Article 370 provision and eliminate the existence of J&K as a state was unconstitutional. But some viewers have asked, what's a little illegality between friends if abrogation brings large enough benefits? They've also sent in a few questions and doubts about the entire process and what happens next. So today, in Beyond the Headlines, I'm going to look at what the impact of the end of Article 370 will be on the political and security situation of Jammu and Kashmir, its economy, and on India's diplomatic front. My morning began with a WhatsApp message from a former Indian ambassador who said about my previous video, "I do not agree with you. Kashmir needed to be integrated as part of India. Their ethnic cleansing of Pandits was unacceptable." Now, the forced exile or ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pandits, or KPs as they are called, is one of the great genocidal sins of modern India, on par with the 1984 massacre of the Sikhs in Delhi and the 2002 killing of Muslims in Gujarat. So if the abolition of Article 370 could right that wrong, who could be against it? The trouble, however, is that the Modi government's move will do nothing for the KPs. Why do I say this? Because their exile was the product of militancy and actually took place when Jammu and Kashmir was under central rule for 6 years, beginning in January 1990. During this period, New Delhi ruled Kashmir as if it were a union territory, with scant regard for any constitutional niceties. Despite this, it failed to provide security to the Kashmiri Pandits. Since then, despite the heavy deployment of security forces across the valley, the central government has failed to create the conditions for the KPs to go back home. Remember, for the past 12 months, the unified command has been directly in the hands of the centre via the governor. So Modi has been calling all the shots on the law and order front, and he has nothing much to show for it. A total of 62,000 Kashmiri Pandit families are registered with the government in Jammu, Delhi and elsewhere. Last month, an opposition MP asked the Home Minister how many KPs had been resettled in the valley since 2014. The government's answer gave details of money spent, jobs reserved and flats built, but it was unable to give any figure for the number of Pandits it was able to finally bring home. So will the abrogation of Article 370 help right a historic wrong to the KPs? Alas, it won't. Not unless the government is first able to improve the security situation in the state. Which brings me to the second comment I received. The scrapping of Article 370 will help because now the central government will have a free hand to fight against terrorism, somebody told me. This claim is also a complete myth. The fact is that the security forces already enjoy more than a free hand to fight terrorism, and Article 370 has not hindered them in any way. Yes, there are rules which apply to the security forces, like you can't shoot innocent people, or you can't torture people or make them disappear. But those rules have actually not been followed despite the Constitution of India, the whole of it, and not just 370, saying that they have to be. Just look at the number of casualties that have resulted from the actions of militants and of the security forces who have been fighting them. The total number of militants killed in the 3 decades since 1989 is 23,745. Sadly, the total number of civilians killed in documented incidents is 14,903, which is nearly 2/3 the number of militants. There's been no formal count, but of these, the number of civilians killed by the security forces in large-scale shootings, fake encounters, and so-called crossfire incidents would run to well over 1,000 over the past 30 years. If all of this was the product of the central government not having a free hand, then we should start bracing ourselves for bloodshed and killing on an even more massive scale. In any case, the trend line for the total number of casualties in Kashmir was falling rapidly until Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, when it began to climb again thanks to the political ineptitude of the government and its failure to build confidence among the civilian population. I hope you saw the trend line on that graph. The long and short is that Article 370 has no bearing on this chart, nor does central rule. All those celebrating the two-step measure of Article 370 being scrapped and statehood for Jammu and Kashmir being abolished need to explain how this will change the security scenario, when all it means is that the same folks who have been in charge till now, with the power to do whatever they wanted, no questions asked, are going to remain in charge with the power to do whatever they want, no questions asked. If anything, the security situation could actually worsen if more and more young men feel drawn to militancy following these humiliating changes, especially the abolition of their state. The third question or objection concedes that ordinary Kashmiris are alienated, which makes fighting militancy more difficult, but asserts that it is the special status accorded by Article 370 that has fueled separatist sentiment all these years. As someone commented, with Article 370 gone, Kashmiris will realize they have no option but to get along with India. I'm sorry, but this is not the case at all. People in the rest of India perhaps don't realize that for those Kashmiris who favor separatism, Article 370 was seen as an irrelevant relic of a process that did not have their consent to begin with. It was the pro-India mainstream politicians who whittled away at separatist sentiment by noting how the concerns for the state's autonomy that led Maharaja Hari Singh to accede to India only in respect of defense, foreign affairs and communications were eventually reflected in a clear constitutional commitment. Despite the fact that Article 370 had eroded to the point of being largely a fiction in practical terms, it actually helped mainstream politicians form a bridge with people who otherwise were either indifferent or actually hostile to being part of India. Despite this, election turnout in the valley has been abysmally low. And now, with the state becoming an appendage of New Delhi, popular disenchantment will only grow. So this is the bottom line here. A significant section of the population in the valley of Kashmir is alienated from India and favors independence. They knew they would never get Azadi and showed signs of a willingness to get on with the system as it existed, provided Delhi treated them with fairness and dignity. Today, Delhi has taken fairness and dignity, in whatever form it actually existed, completely off the table, but expects the population to actually feel fonder towards the Indian Union. How is that even possible? In fact, Modi and Shah know that it is not possible, which is why there has been an unprecedented blockade on information and communications in the valley for the past 48 hours. Arrests and even concerns about how the J&K police, till now a loyal arm of the Indian establishment, will react to the new situation. The fourth issue people have raised has to do with the economy, that now investment will flow because outsiders can buy land in Kashmir, and with this will come more jobs and thus less alienation. As an SMS to me said, I couldn't buy land in Kashmir, but a Kashmiri could buy land in my state. That's not fair. So now I can buy land, set up a factory, and give jobs to hundreds of Kashmiris. Gradually, separatist sentiment will end. Okay, so there are two parts to this question. First, reciprocity. Residents of the 6th scheduled areas of Nagaland, Assam, Mizoram and other northeastern states can buy land in, say, Tamil Nadu, but a Tamilian can't buy land in most of the northeast. So many states have provisions for their own residents: Uttarakhand, Himachal, Meghalaya. Not all of them are as sweeping as what Article 370 meant, but yes, they did violate the principle of reciprocity, and no one seems to have had any big objection either. So why should Kashmir be singled out in this way? But let's look at the second part of this question. The reason the economy of J&K has not seen more investment isn't because the restriction on the purchase of land by outsiders has been a problem, but because of the disturbed security situation there and the failure of the centre to take timely political initiatives whenever the security situation actually improved. As Arunachal Pradesh has shown, by allowing outside companies to lease land that is owned by locals, solutions can always be found within the constraints of a state's landowning restrictions. But the bottom line is that investors will only be willing to set up a factory if the security situation is under control. The mainstay of the valley's economy is tourism and horticulture. And if these sectors have not realized their growth potential, it is not because outside hoteliers, say, cannot purchase land. Leases in partnership with locals are always permissible, but because there is no guarantee that tourists will come in large numbers given the violence, curfews, crackdowns, and now the severing of all communications with the outside world. The fifth and final question I want to consider today is the diplomatic one. Today's newspapers quote a government official saying, "By scrapping Article 370, we have ended the possibility of any mediation by Trump and closed the door on any attempt by Pakistan to keep internationalizing Kashmir." Brave words, but this argument makes no sense at all. India's stand on mediation and its capacity to withstand unwanted intervention is a function of its strength and resolve as a country, and not what internal arrangements it has over its own territory. Indeed, by claiming that Trump's offer of mediation helped to firm up the government's resolve to find a way to block him, the BJP is only betraying a certain lack of confidence in its own ability to withstand external pressure. Even with Article 370 unchanged, India had the ability to rebuff any unwelcome mediation effort, as it did in the 1990s. So this safeguarding India from mediation argument holds no water. It is, however, worth looking at how the 370 move will change things for India at the global level. World reactions have so far been guarded. Pakistan has said it fully intends to use the Indian move to activate the Kashmir issue at every possible international forum. China has openly come out against the move and used the bifurcation of the state and the creation of Ladakh as a standalone union territory to rake up the question of Ladakh's status as an integral part of India. India has no reason to fear China and has protested Beijing's statement, but this unnecessary stirring of the diplomatic pot was also, to my mind, foolish. Will China stand on Ladakh, grant Pakistan a handle to try and push the Jammu Kashmir file at the UN? If it does so, India will have to rely on the United States, Russia, Britain and France to block even the issuing of a simple statement by the President of the Security Council, not to speak of a resolution if things were ever to come to that. Those countries will no doubt oblige India, but will expect to be paid back for the favour with some concession in exchange. These are transactional times in world politics, and there is no such thing as a free veto. Has the abolition of Article 370 then strengthened India's hand globally? It's hard to make the case that it has. Could it have weakened India's hand? Possibly, but the jury is still out. So net-net, where do we stand on the Article 370 debate? Not only has the Modi-Shah team done something unconstitutional, they have also set the stage for greater alienation and unrest in the valley, which in turn will further weaken Kashmir's economy. Of course, the BJP expects to gain politically in the rest of India. And who ultimately ends up paying what price for its adventurism does not appear to bother the party too much.